a lot of times in relationships, I think I see a lot of women or a lot of men in this case are like, well, I got to do this for this person, all that. I think that you saw that I valued myself at the time.
Yeah.
And you were like, hey, this is different. I can't really mess around because she loves herself and she values herself too much that if I screw up, I'm going to screw the whole thing up.
There would be no Andy Elliott if there wasn't Jacqueline Elliott. Because when you found me, I was an absolute project. And a lot of people, they find people that are doing great in life right now, and they're like, man, I want to be like them. But they have no idea that they're once a project. And the project has to have someone to believe in the project. And that was you. So when let's go back to when we first met.
Well, going back to the project thing.
You were 24. I was 26.
Yes, I was 24. I'm 2 years younger than you. But I've always been really addicted to projects, probably in the worst way possible. But I saw potential in it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. He was a little crazy. You were all over the place, you know. He was a little womanizer, you know, at the time, I guess.
I was like Little House on the Prairie.
No, you weren't like House on the Prairie. You actually were like Wedding Crashers style guy. Like you were really bad. And everybody told me, hey, do not talk to Andy Elliott. He's crazy.
Yeah, dude, what was up with everybody saying don't talk to me?
But, you know, on the other hand, you know, I wasn't like, you know, scared, I guess. And I'm like, hey, I don't put up with anybody's shit. I was very opinionated. I was very independent. So I was like, hey, you mess up one time, you don't get to see me again. I'm not going to cry for you if you do something to me. You just won't ever see me again. And you're like, oh, shit. You got real serious.
Yeah, so I think everybody in life at some point, they find that person that kind of gets them in check, right?
Yeah.
And Jackie drew a hard line in the sand right when I got with her, which by the way, Jackie was super cool. I mean, when I first met you, you know, you were my best friend. I was like, oh my gosh, she's super cool. You know, I didn't want you to leave. You know, like we were doing work, we were doing all that. Then after work, we'd hang out. And then I remember I was like, man, why don't you just stay, you know, tonight? You know, why don't you stay again?
And he never let me go home.
Well,
like a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half. You kept
an
empty apartment and you stayed with me every night. But I remember the first thing that you said, like there's going to be a line that we don't cross, right? Mm-hmm. And I always cross those lines. You know
previously.
What I mean? Yeah, previously.
Yes.
But because I was crazy and there was actually nothing worth having to not cross the line. And by being raised, you know, without a mom, women, obviously being great moms, teach their kids to be good. That was never taught. So I was raised by guys and raised by kids. So I'm doing well in business, or at least I think I am. I'm making money, young salesman, hustling, have lots of girlfriends. And then I meet you and I'm like, dude, like, oh my gosh. And then that was really the first time I think that I found love, right?
Well, you also were attracted to the girls that you had to really take care of, I think, at that time. Like we were pretty much equals. Like I worked, I had my own money, I had homes, I had properties, I had my own cars.
Yeah, I think that was different.
It was a little different. It was a little different, but it was hard for me too because I was stubborn. I had my own opinions. I didn't put up with anybody's shit, and I didn't feel like I needed a man. So it was a big learning curve for both of us in that sense. But yeah, that line was really, 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 really marked really hard in the sand, and there was not anything.
Well, but when you called the shot, I actually listened. And for the first time in my life, I want to tell you, I listened, and I think that was some of the best things that I ever did. So if you ever find someone that's worth changing for, change with that person, dude. And I'm telling you, life gets pretty amazing, you know, pretty quick. A lot of people always ask me, they say, you know, Andy, how do I get my wife to be successful like you? Just like you always have guys ask, like, how do I get my wife to support, you know, me like you support Andy?
That's a big question that I get asked all the time.
Well,
but going back to like what we were talking about too, because a lot of people are like, hey, you know, there's a fine line between like really saying what you want and drawing that hard line. Like it has to come from first somebody respecting and loving yourself and really giving yourself value in order for the other person to really see that. Because a lot of times in relationships, I think I see a lot of women or a lot of men in this case are like, well, I got to do this for this person, all that. I think that you saw that I valued myself at the time.
Yeah.
And you were like, hey, this is different. I can't really mess around because she loves herself and she values herself too much that if I screw up, I'm going to screw the whole thing up.
Yeah, I think that's true. I found a lot of people that needed me.
They needed you.
And really, like, I would be good without them, not being negatively, but like, you know, like I'm good, you know, and then when I met you, I was like, damn, dude, you know, she's killing it. She's doing good. You know, like when I was with you, my life was better. And then I realized, and this is where I think that people always ask, like, how do I make my wife, you know, be like you, or how do my girl be like you? One of the big things is that you would have been successful and had a great life even if I wasn't around. And so that was one of the things that I knew, that like, dude, she's going to be good, like either way, like she's going to be great. So like, I think that together we would both be great. So like, I found value in you. So I think like if anybody would take any relationship advice, it's that, you know, work on yourself, become great. And that way, whoever you run into or whoever you're with, they're like, and if you're with somebody now, you just change, become that person.
That person should help you become a better person.
Yeah. I was
or
like,
enhance who
I became
you are.
better just being with you.
So a lot of people are, I'm going to be happy once I move into this house. I'm going to be happy when I find this person. I'm going to be happy once I graduate college, or I'm going to be happy when I get this job, or I'm going to be happy when I move to this city. So you're never going to find happiness in what you have. And I think that that's something that I did. I was fine on my own. And I was content being a loner, and I was content being around people because I was very confident in that sense.
Yeah.
So when we found each other, it was like, hey, you know what? You were your way. You had your qualities, and you're always a great salesman, and you've always been good in business. You were just a little all over the place, and I was addicted to projects, and I'm still that way. I like doing projects. Like even in business, if I see something that needs attention, I'm going to go and dive into it and do that. That's just my personality, but it's part of that build. I don't think I would have been the girl that would have been married some rich doctor and been like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm going to go and get taken care of. That wouldn't have been the same. I don't think I would have respected him the same way I respect you if that would have been the case, you know?
Well, plus I think relationships thrive whenever people constantly are keeping, you know, like newness and turmoil and crazy stuff in their life. And most people want to get all that out, and they're like, oh, we're tired of chasing, you know, let's just relax. But at the end of the day, that's when people die and decay, right? Like me and you always stay wound up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just because we're always putting a new project. It's like,
and we're so competitive.
Yeah, like
we're massively competitive, but we're competitive in a good way.
Yeah, we're a team competing for the same thing, but it's almost become a competition to like who's crazier. But we do communicate and make sure that the stuff that we go crazy on, it's things that we align with in life.
Yeah, the stuff that's going to help us grow in a healthy way, I guess. That's something that's going to allow us to push to another level. And that's why I think that we grow not only in business, but in marriage and as parents and all of that, because you really grow when you push yourself to that next level. So we don't allow ourselves to get comfortable in that sense.